August 28th, 2021. Tragedy struck. Now you're probably wondering, what was this tragedy? Well, I'd like to present to you the Ch'en Conundrum. Now what is that, you're probably wondering? Well, you see, the gist of it is, on that day, Ch'en on the tier list was bumped from an S- to an A+. Now, you're probably wondering, why is that a big deal? Well, first off, she is the first and only ever 6-star to be bumped down to A- tier. Now, that probably doesn't sound like a big problem, right? Well, you know, something that has been expressed by a lot of people, especially like recently, is how a lot of operators have become obsolete due to the fact that more powerful operators are coming in almost each and every banner, you know? Ever since about maybe Surtur or Thorns, depending on, you know, where you think about it. It's, a lot of the operators have been very, very powerful since then. And so that leaves a lot of the older operators to be more obsolete or fall out of the meta, or even come into more niche roles. And so something I kind of thought about is, you know, maybe older players would be turned away, you know? For example, a conversation between like me and my friends, you know, dude, he comes back, dude, you play Arknights now, you know, who's good, who's bad? I say, you know, who's, you know, Surtur, and they're like, what the hell's a Surtur, you know? And then, something like, you know, I have E2 max level Ch'en, is she still good? And then, you know, how do I break the news? Oh, well, actually, there's a new limited unit, Ch'en the Hauling Day, and she's just way better. She's literally just, there's no reason really to ever use default Ch'en anymore because, well, Ch'en the Hauling Day is just insane. She's very good, and not to mention, she's limited. So my friend who missed the event wouldn't be able to get him. Obviously, I'm talking about something that would happen in the future, perhaps. But obviously, this is something that could turn him away. Oh, limited Ch'en? My Ch'en's bad now? I'm not gonna play, you know? So, what is this whole thing about? What are we gonna do about it? And how are we gonna go about it? So, I'd like to propose some changes, is how I'd like to go about it. And so we're gonna talk about it and try and fix Ch'en, because she is my waifu, and I'd like to see her be relevant again. She's my favorite unit, and definitely my favorite character in Arknights by a long shot. So, let's start by doing an overview of Ch'en, what her skills do, and what should change. So off the bat, her stats, attributes: 2,880 HP, 660 attack, 402 defense, 0 resistance, 22 cost, and 2 blocks, slightly slow attack speed. So, what here should change? Now, I would say the main things that she should be buffed are her attack, because her attack is mediocre, and her HP, maybe, I don't really think it should see that big of a change. I think the main is the attack. Maybe add a bit of resistance too if you really want to. But I think attack is the most important stat, as her tags are nuker and DPS. Something I would also like to point out is this is a max level Ch'en. This is Surtur. 750 at level 75 with a 100% attack trust bonus. Why does Ch'en get attack and defense as her trust bonus when she's a nuker? Surtur is just DPS, but hers is nuker. Shouldn't she be more focused on damage than defense? I mean, I guess you could argue to survive to charge her skills, but I don't know. I think that's something that should be maybe looked into, because splitting it between attack and defense doesn't really make too much sense to me. Anyways, that is for debate, and I'd like to hear what you think about that in the comments. But anyways, continuing. Her talents: Scolding, every 4 seconds when deployed, restore 1 skill point to all deployed allies that have an attack or defense recovery skill. This, I think, is really good, and keep in mind it's both attack and defensive recovery, so this works with things like Thorn's Destreza, Mudrock's second skill, Crag Splitter, and that will also work with anyone with those skills. And second talent is Blade Art, attack plus 5%, defense plus 5%, and physical dodge plus 10%. These are very negligible stats in my opinion. To be honest, I feel like they're okay. They're not very good. I think it's a very it's a talent that could be a lot better in my opinion, but it is what it is. I think it's good for what it does, I guess. Her trait is normal attack, steal damage twice. This will come in handy later for one of my points that I'd like to make. Her potential, DP cost, redeployment time, -4 is default. Attack plus 23, improve second talent, DP cost. So her improvements to her second talent are plus 1% attack, plus 1% attack, defense, and plus 3% physical dodge. So, you know, negligible stats, but as it should be because it's potential. Her 23 attack bonus is, again, just, you know, whatever. All right. Now onto the skills. What should change with the skills? So currently, as it is and as the gameplay will show, She Strike throws the sheath to stun enemies in the next attack, dealing 260% of attack physical damage, and stuns the hit targets for 1.5 seconds. So notice that it's plural, and something that made me you know, think, so basically the way it describes it seems like it maybe hit more than one target if, you know, maybe if you just kind of, if you word it that way, I guess. But it only hits one target. So the way, when I read this, something I thought about is maybe they could make it multi-target, so it would attack all blocked enemies or equal to block count, so 2. Or if they want to go a little overboard with it to make it very viable, they take it to the extreme and make it all in range. And that, I think, would be very good. I think just the first one, where it would attack all blocked enemies, would make this skill very, very, very viable. And I think it would also help her move into a flex multi-role, like a flex role. So, you know, multi-role, where she's more niche to the current situation rather than just a straight nuker. So that way she would, each skill would have its own unique purpose rather than just being, you know, specifically just this, do this, you know? So that is, I think, what my goal would be for this, is just to turn these all into more niche kind of skills that can be useful in most stages. For example, this will be the drone strike skill, this will be the burst damage and more crowd control, and this will also just be more of a utility skill if you want to make her be a more supportive unit. So for her second skill, Chisao Unsheath, 20 out of 20 SP at Mastery 3. Deals 500% attack physical damage and 500% of arts damage to at most 7 enemies in front of this unit. So that's actually, you know, really good, especially on paper. And so damage boost, I think, would be a good way to start with this. However, if that doesn't, you know, really give her the oomph she needs, maybe a stun or store more charges. However, I could definitely see where this would be maybe a little bit, you know, I guess infringing on the likes of Bybeak, where that would be too similar to our skill. So I could understand that, and I'd like to hear more suggestions in the comments, of course, because I was struggling a bit to come up with things. I think this skill is very, very good. I think it could just use a bit of a damage buff, especially since her attack stat is a little bit lacking. It would, you know, more solidify her role as a nuker rather than just, you know, Babeek is better, because, well, Babeek's is basically the same, and it, you know, it's just, it does more, really. It doesn't do as much damage, but... Now for skill 3. At Mastery 3, I'll read it as Mastery 3. So looks for the closest enemy around and launches a strike 10 times in a row, dealing 320% of attack damage every time and stunning the target for 4 seconds by the last strike. Now, this is where I think things get a little bit more interesting, and I think this skill could be a lot more of a supportive utility skill as well as a nuker skill, by doing things like slowing enemies. You know, it's something, I guess, how I guess you would see out of like maybe Attack on Titan, how they attack their legs, and that would make it so their mobility is reduced, so that could be how it logically slows enemies. Reduced defense, you've seen how fast, if you've ever seen the skill, how fast she moves when she does it. It would make sense, you know, maybe I think that would put a little bit of a dent in the armor, you know, wouldn't you agree? More damage, obviously, you know, maybe do it up by intervals of 50, you know, maybe 370%, and then maybe, if not, maybe 400%, and then, you know, maybe if they want to go crazy, like 450% or something, you know, maybe like 200% more. I think that would be a little crazy, but, you know, the more the merrier. Something I'd also like to talk about all these skills is reduce the SP cost. If you look to her, like, her counterparts, Cutter and Bybeak, you'll actually see their SP costs are very, very, just, they're so much less than Ch'en's. They're very minimal. I think Cutter has about 14 or 12, and I think 7 for her other skill, whereas I know Bybeak has 7 for her second skill, and it can stack multiple charges, I believe up to 3 charges, which is very, very powerful. And so I don't think that would be too out of the question, maybe for Ch'en to be able to do the same thing, or maybe even just reduce the SP cost on, for example, her third skill, whereas at S3, it is, or at M3, it is 20 initial SP, and it goes up to 30 to get the skill. And that's a little bit of a lot, especially considering her attacks are, once it's, you know, on attack, on hit. That's a lot of time for her to not have a skill, you know? So I think making it the skill a bit better would be nice. You know, maybe it can even reduce resistance. I think that would be interesting, as I believe lore-wise Shizao is an arts blade, so it would make, you know, maybe it would make sense that it could maybe cut some resistance off. I think that would be, you know, especially it would help make it more of a multi-role and supportive skill as well. And maybe even so, maybe multi-target, just, you know, instead of the closest enemy, it would attack all enemies in range, or up to a certain amount, you know, maybe up to 5 enemies or 4, and I have, you know, maybe multiple Ch'en chibis just going crazy at lightning speeds, as it would make sense because she, as that skill shows, she goes that fast, you know? So I think that would be a very interesting change to it. It would change the entire dynamic of the skill, in my opinion, and I think it would be a lot better, especially. And so something, you know, maybe these sound a little outrageous, you know? This might sound a little bit too OP. Well, something I'd like to emphasize is that Ch'en is a 6-star, and people could have paid money for her. And so say you pay maybe $200 or spend 180 distinctions. That's a lot of distinctions. That's a lot of money to spend. And to kind of have that thrown in your face, I guess, maybe if you're a new player, you get Ch'en, you invest in her, you E2 her, and you find out a week later that Cutter and Bybeak are on par or even better in some people's opinions than Ch'en. It would be kind of heartbreaking, especially if you spend a lot of money or hard-earned distinctions on them. So I think, you know, I think it would be nice to make her a little bit better, along with other units that are suffering the same purposes, or like suffering the same, I guess, downfall, such as like Scotty. So I think these would be some good changes. And something I'd also like to emphasize is how maybe older players might be turned away. This is more of like a controversial topic, I guess, but something I'd just like to add is maybe, let's say hypothetically, I had a friend who was who used to be into Arknights towards maybe the first year or so, and then they left, and then they maybe in year like 3 or 4 they said, hey, I want to come back, and they're like, who's good, you know, who's the meta units, and they're like, is Ch'en good? Because they have her E2 level 90, we'll say hypothetically, and I'd be like, you know, no, she's fallen so far down, she's basically irrelevant at this point in the current events, whereas there's now a new limited Ch'en the Holiday, and she's virtually a ranged Ch'en that is just better in every single way. She does way more damage, way more burst, she attacks everyone in her range, her skill is infinite until it runs out of ammo, you know, and they're like, wow, this is so great. Do I get her for free since I have Ch'en? No, because she's limited. So this is more just food for thought. I mean, hypothetically, for the situation, I'd just like to throw that out there. That might be a thing that could come up in the future. And it's something I just like to talk about, because I feel like maybe I would be that way. And maybe I would feel a little bit upset if I found out that maybe Bybeak was a little bit better than my Ch'en after I spent a lot of money and a lot of pulls on her. So I think these are important changes to talk about, and I think it would be very interesting to see how she gets buffed. I know it's maybe unlikely because of how Ch'en the Holiday was just released, and maybe after she could get a buff, I think that would be interesting, or maybe even the things that the new support units got that buff them, I think it would be interesting to see maybe her get one, maybe just, you know, to buff her up, because I think she kind of needs a little bit of love. I know a lot of people say her glory days are over, but as my favorite unit in the game, I love to see her stay for the long haul, as she's my favorite unit, and I really just adore her. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I'd like to hear your comments on this in the description, or not in the description, in the comment section. I like to hear your takes. I like to hear things you'd like to change, maybe things you'd like to see. And if you agree or not with my opinion, just please keep it respectful and be nice to everybody. And feel free to debate in the comment section. I'd actually very much like to join in on it and see what you guys have to say, and see if there's a definitive thing that we could come up with as a community to see that would be beneficial to Ch'en, and maybe see if that could get changed. So I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and good luck on your polls in the future. Bye bye.